Hello, and welcome to this week's CybHER Conversation brought to you by Peraton. I'm Jill Thomas, Vice President of Growth for Global Defense and Security Sector at Peraton, and we are proud and excited to partner with CybHER to bring you these weekly conversations. For those of you who are joining us for the first time today, CybHER is a program out of Dakota State University, aka DSU, in Madison, South Dakota that works to motivate, empower, and educate young women in cybersecurity. As we get started, I'll note that if you have a question at any point during the conversation, you may ask it via the Q&A button on your screen. And now, for our speaker today, I am pleased to introduce you to Teresa Shea, Vice President of Cyber Offense and Defense Exports, known as CODEX, at Raytheon Intelligence and Space. CODEX is focused on providing cyber capabilities for offense, defense, and security initiatives. Teresa joined Raytheon from the In-Q-Tel, where she was Executive Vice President of Technology and Director of Cyber-Reboot. She came to In-Q-Tel after a distinguished 32-year career with the National Security Agency, ending her time there as a Director of Signals Intelligence. She has been a board advisor to the Virginia Tech Hume Center, the MITRE Corporation, and continues to serve on the Georgia Institute of Technology Board of Advisors. For her service, she has received numerous awards, including the President's Distinguished Rank Award from President George W. Bush and also from President Barack Obama, the National Intelligence Distinguished Service Medal, the Central Intelligence Agency's Donovan Award, and the Department of Defense Medal for Distinguished Civilian Service. Teresa, welcome to CybHER, and thank you for joining us today.
Wow, Jill, thank you. I didn't know you were going to read that entire bio, but I could have shortened it up for you. I am just really thrilled to be here. I think this is such a great organization. What a great way to reach out to as many girls, women that we can, and just have us connect as a network to help support each other and encourage each other. I just have a couple of objectives, I think, today. The first is really to get you excited about this cyber field and cybersecurity, and it is a very exciting field. And the second really is to answer any questions that I can answer of anything that really you're curious about and you want to know more about. I did put together a few slides. So if I could share my screen, I'll just get these slides up here. Can you guys all see those okay? Can you give me the thumbs up? Yeah, okay, great, okay. And Jill mentioned that, you know, I am at Raytheon now. I did have a long career in the government that was very rewarding at the National Security Agency. And I run this exciting group. It's small, but it's the Cyber Offense Defense Experts. And so we focus really on reverse engineering and vulnerability research, which are two topics that I don't think get enough attention. And so I wanted to talk a little bit, not just about reverse engineering and vulnerability research, but more about the fact that as women, there are many giants in this field, female giants in this field that I don't think get enough credit for what they've done, and we all stand on their shoulders. And then there's many that are coming up after us. So all of you in the audience today will be wildly successful in your career choices. And I'd ask you to remember to reach out and give back to those that are coming up and going through the struggles that you once went through. So just a couple of things on how we got here. I'll argue for a moment that cybersecurity really has its roots in cryptanalysis, that exciting making and breaking of crypto codes. And this was really the beginning of the computer era. And if you go back to World War II, really, and the work that was being done to break these complicated codes all by hand, with paper and pencil really kind of led to the first computers being developed, and then out of the Defense Advanced Agency at the DoD, DARPA, led to ARPANET, the internet, and voila, we have this massive interconnectivity of devices globally, even in third world countries that previously didn't have any way to connect. You saw mobile devices and people were able to connect around the world. So super, super exciting. But as you fast forward to today and what's happening in our world today of this cyber world that we live in, we all live in it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All of our intellectual property is there, all of our valuable information is there. And we're starting to get into artificial intelligence where we're training machines to think. And of course, that takes humans and it takes lots and lots of data. And the data is just continuing to grow. And now we're coming into this 5th generation of telecommunications, which is going to advance the speeds of interconnectivity. If you don't have a toaster that's talking to you, or a toothbrush, or a fork that's telling you you're eating too fast, you're making the right choices. But they're all available. They're all available. And more of that's going to happen. And there's going to be more and more information about you and what you do and how you use these devices consumed in order to, well, one thing that we all experience every day in terms of advertising and serving up different things of interest that you might have indicated on one of your multiple, you know, the inner connections with social media or someplace like that. So be careful what you put out there in social media and what you're doing online, because that data really never goes away. And that kind of leads me to this reverse engineering and vulnerability research being fundamental really to the cyber, especially in the defense of our networks. And I just wanted to mention a couple of giants. I talked about, you know, women that have gone before us, and one of them who's near and dear to my heart is Elizabeth Smith, and she actually was a poetry scholar. So one of the myths, I think, in cyber today is that we all have to be brilliant mathematicians or the best computer science or the best engineer. And actually, it's cyber is not necessarily so much that you have to be that technical expert. It really is a people business at the end of the day. And Elizabeth Smith really recognized that. She was a poetry scholar. She became instrumental in code breaking to support multiple war efforts. There's a great PBS documentary about her that's called The Code Breaker that I'd encourage all of you to watch. But she she married William Friedman, and they really were the Adam and Eve of the NSA. So how great is that for the National Security Agency to have Elizabeth Smith Friedman as sort of the woman to look up to as really leading the way. And then I wanted to highlight Anne Cara Christie as well. Many of you probably haven't heard of Anne Cara Christie, because when you do the work in cryptanalysis, it's usually in secret, and those secrets aren't revealed to the public. So a lot of the information and the work that Anne Cara Christie in particular did, especially in World War II, to break some of the toughest codes, really, and I think it's still arguable today that much of this work that was done, you know, took years off of that war. So cybersecurity, cyber work does make a difference in the world. It is invaluable to the security of our nation, and it's rewarding in knowing that. And she was the first female deputy director at the National Security Agency, one of only 3. I had the privilege of knowing her personally, and talk about a role model. I mean, it's always great for all of us to have role models to look up to. And I think sometimes we forget that there is a long history of women in this field, and there's more to come. So I wanted to share that. I know I'm supposed to tell my story a little bit here. So I just threw some questions up here that, I could think of, but really this is your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. A couple of things about me. I grew up in the Midwest. I think a lot of you guys are out there in South Dakota where it's really cold. We moved as a child. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, and we moved as a child to Mableton, Georgia, and that was a real change. And this was back in 1969, so it was a long time ago, and that was a real change. And as a child, I always wanted to be a teacher. That's sort of what we did back then. We were either teachers or nurses, housewives, mothers, of course. When I graduated from high school, I decided that becoming a teacher in the state of Georgia at that time, the salaries were terrible. They're a little better now, but they got a long way to go. And Georgia Tech was 17 miles from my home. So I ended up going to Georgia Tech and getting an electrical engineering degree. Another big thing about being in this cyber field is it's still predominantly men. So there's a lot of guys out there. And I met my husband in college. I think there were 10 guys to every woman at that time. So, I met my husband there, and we ended up getting married, and we have 2 daughters. And now I'm just in this great place in life where I have 4 grandchildren, which is just awesome. I did have this, my husband, when he graduated from his master's degree, we ended up going to Maryland, and he went to work for the National Security Agency. That's how I ended up getting at the National Security Agency. And I quickly became hooked on the mission. The mission there is all about the security of our nation. We're also a combat support agency. So we serve alongside the military. It's called force protection. Certainly after 9/11 happened, which affected all of us in the intelligence community personally, and we ended up in these decades now of war. We were forward deployed alongside them, and you knew you were making a difference, and you knew you were saving lives. So that's a really rewarding career. I would encourage everyone to seriously consider the intelligence community, the Department of Defense, as a career choice. It doesn't have to be forever. I did retire from there, and I'm now, in the private sector and loving that as well. But it just was a really rewarding experience. The one common myth about our profession, I'm going to go back to my point about people believe that to get into this profession, you got to be some technical guru. And actually, it really is about people and being able to communicate, being curious, asking questions. Yes, of course, learning technical skills in order to do the work, but it's more largely about understanding people, understanding how to communicate, and having that team environment with a lot of curiosity and asking that next question. What is the one thing I wish I knew when I started? Probably how important it is who you work for. So when you take your first job, make sure you know who you're going to work for, because you want to work for somebody that really is a supporter of yours, promotes you and moves obstacles out of your way so you can be successful. VR, vulnerability research and reverse engineering. I'm going to close with this. It's just to say that that is really the code breaking of cybersecurity, where you are taking things apart piece by piece and then putting them back together. And it is just super exciting work. It's super fun. I just want to show you one picture because I had a whole bunch of slides here. I'm not going to go through them. But in this world of cybersecurity and vulnerability research and reverse engineering, it is about innovation constantly. It has to be a habit. And we don't always innovate behind a desk, do we? Sometimes we innovate when we're in bubbles, bumping up against each other, or we're out on a hike with our colleagues. I know the pandemic has shut a lot of this down, but I'm looking forward to getting back to these kinds of activities to just bring us all together in a different way for more collaboration. So why don't I stop there and turn this back over to Katie, or whoever's going to do the questions. Let me see what's on you guys' mind.
Well, you did answer a lot of questions already. Like you had an entire slide of questions, and most of our questions are kind of the same. So you did answer a lot of them.
Oh,
but
good.
Thank you so much. I mean, your journey is fantastic. Like, it's inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You know, everybody's journey is inspiring in a lot of ways, right? And I think that what's so great about this organization is the networking. We underestimate how important networking is. The guys figured this out a long time ago. You know, sometimes we used to refer to it, and none of you guys are as old as me, so you probably don't remember this, but you know, it was the old boy network, right? The old boys network was out at work again. It really was about their ability to network, and it is really important for us. I'm on LinkedIn. Reach out to me. I will respond. I will connect. It's just so important for us to help each other on our journeys, because we all are dealing with different things in our lives at different times. And it's always good to have somebody out there that can actively listen, and sometimes that's all it takes, just listening.
Yeah, very true. I never really understood the power of networking until like very recently. I would say the last 5 or 6 months, not even before that. I'm not a very like people person. I do talk to people, but I'm not a very overly networking, that kind of person. And so it took me a long time to understand that networking is good for you. It's where you make a lot of connections, and sometimes people can help you get to where you want to be. And so I couldn't.
So you must be are you an introvert by any chance?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, so it takes a lot. I am too. But over the years, I've learned to become, like you're learn to become more extroverted. But it does take a lot of energy, especially if you're an introvert, right? I remember at NSA, because they used to say at NSA, you're an extrovert if you're looking at your shoes instead of your belly button. I mean, that, we were just a whole thousands of introverts. And I remember going out, everybody would go to the parking lot and sit in their cars for lunch. Wow. Because they wanted to be alone, right? They wanted to not be around other people, and they just needed that time to re-energize.
Yeah.
And we all need that. And I do think it's really important that everybody take that time every day to re-energize for themselves, whether that's sitting in a closet eating Reese's Pieces, or whether that's exercising or whatever. That's another really important thing to re-energize, so that you can do these things that help you along your journey.
Exactly. We do have a couple questions from our audience. So you've had a wonderful long career, and what has been the most exciting part so far?
Yeah, okay. So I have to tell you, I had this just awesome opportunity to lead a group when I was at the National Security Agency. It's called Tailored Access Operations. And it was a brand new organization. And it was this was a long time ago. So we were just kind of getting into this whole cyber world. And the National Security Agency has two missions. One is the signals intelligence, and that's really where you're collecting intelligence on foreign adversaries. And the other one is information assurance, which we now call cybersecurity. And this particular organization was sort of the genesis of bringing those two together. And it was the individuals in there were passionate about what they were doing. They were excited about it. They just thought they could, it was one of these things that was sort of like a startup where they thought, they had this thinking they could conquer the world and really do, overcome any challenges that were thrown their way. And I found that, even though I got to tell you, and this is something that we do as women way too often, we're way too, when that job was first offered to me, I was like, I don't think I'm the right person for that, right? I think you need to go get X, Y, all guys. Yeah, I ended up in the position largely because my boss's boss's boss said, no, you're going to take that position. And we serve at the, at the behest of the director. And it turned out to be one of the most exciting, rewarding. I learned so much, and I got to work with so many brilliant people, and every day was just a new adventure.
I love that. Do you do any CTFs or brain teasers outside of work?
Say that again. Do I what?
Capture the flags or any brain teasers outside of work?
So I don't participate personally. Let me just say that up front. My organization is huge into the Capture the Flag hackathons. In fact, we just won the Hackasat, which was a DEF CON hackathon that was led out of the Air Force about hacking satellites. And so it's super exciting for us to win that. We sponsor hackathons. We sponsor the Capitol Hack a couple of times a year. So my organization is really, that's a great way to learn. What a great way to meet other people, to get on a team, to figure out how to work together and to compete, right? It's fun. It's fun, which is another myth in cyber that it's not fun. It absolutely is fun. And if it's not, you're not in the right role or the right place. So we do a lot of that, and I love those events. I just sit on the sidelines and watch and cheer. But I'm involved in this national college collegiate cyber competition, which is another, and that's where you actually have a real mimicked company that has a crisis, has an attack, and the teams have to figure out how to deal with the crisis. And it's kind of funny to watch because they're trying to communicate with the board of directors at this company and the CEO, and they don't, they're talking technical geek, and the CEO is like, what are you talking about? I mean, it's great. It's great because it really does bring home the fact that communication for non-technical people who are usually the ones sitting in the C-suite is really an art and a talent.
So you are the vice president of CODEX at Raytheon. What does your day-to-day look like?
So my day-to-day really looks mostly these days is Zoom calls. Way too many Zoom. That's how I meet with people now, is Zoom calls. And it's, so I do a lot. This pandemic has especially had such an impact on women. I mean, Katie and I were talking before we started about, children are at home now. I mean, at least here in Arlington where I live, they shut the schools down, and children are trying to learn from home. And it's falling on the shoulders of a lot of women and mothers and grandmothers. So my grandkids live with me now. I mean, it's one of these in trying to teach them virtually. Do your job, keep all these balls in the air constantly. Is just been really especially hard on women. A lot of women are getting out of the workforce as a result. And I just think it's really important these days. I spend a lot of time reaching out, just touching base with people, making sure they're okay. Not they're going to tell me, all their problems, but just to let them know that I'm there, and that if they do need somebody to talk to, they can reach out. And I think it helps people to know that. Besides that, Raytheon has a lot of meetings. So I go to a lot of meetings. I'll tell you a secret. Maybe it's not going to be a secret anymore, but I used to just have like my computer at home, and I would do things like bake cakes and bake pies while all these meetings were going on, because there was a lot of there's a lot of that goes on. So my day, though, I'd like to think, I really am running a business at the end of the day. So I'm engaging customers, making sure we've got the right teams, and we're delivering exquisite capabilities to our customers. And we work for the intelligence community, Department of Defense, for the government. So it's really, really important that we are delivering the best that we possibly can for the mission.
And what you said about the, just checking in or just emailing, hey, hope you're doing okay. If you need anything, let me know. And it goes a long way. Like you said, maybe they won't necessarily tell you, but just they'll know that, okay, somebody does care. Somebody has reached out to me, and it's a little serotonin boost.
Yeah,
that we all need.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that's just a great way to put it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're almost out of time, so we have one last question for you. What advice would you give to all the young people that are watching the session?
Okay, don't give up. This is a tough field. It's a tough world. Don't give up. We're here to help. Reach out, be persistent, and you will be wildly successful.
Those are such wonderful words to end on, and I agree with them so wholeheartedly. So thank you so much for being our speaker this week. Your journey, your role, all sounds amazing, and we're thrilled to have had you on here. Now, I am going to launch a quick poll for all of our attendees. If you can complete that for us, we would appreciate that. So we just know a little bit about your participation in today's conversation. And I also want to invite you back to next week's conversation, where we will be featuring Priya, and I'm probably going to mess up her last name, so I apologize, Nana Sakaran. She is a security technologist at Telstra, which is an Australian telecommunications company. You're not going to want to miss that either. But you can also find out more about all of CybHER programs at cybher.org, or on any of our social media on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. So we do have our summer camp coming up. Unfortunately, it is full, but you can get on the wait list if you go to our website and sign up. But we're so excited to bringing back the Gen Cyber Girls in Cybersecurity Camp to DSU again this year. Again, thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Jill and Peraton, as always, for just the wonderful world that you guys have in helping us empower girls in cybersecurity. We wish everybody a great evening.